Alright, so in this video, I'm going to be explaining to you why cultural appropriation is harmful. Um, so first off, there's a lot of misconceptions as to what cultural appropriation is. People think that it's they seem to think that it's some sort of like ban on cultural exchange, and that's simply not true. There are several different myths out there that's just completely wrong, and this is completely bogus, and it doesn't make sense. And I'm just gonna go over them and tell you um, why it's bogus, and then I'm gonna explain to you why cultural appropriation is harmful. Um, so first off, people say uh, that cultural appropriation is uh, is basically cultural exchange, and that's not really true. Um, why? Because cultural exchange is two people or two groups of people of different cultures getting together and sharing cultures, sharing ideas, sharing art, sharing philosophy, you name it. That's cultural exchange. It's a two-way street. Both people benefit. With cultural appropriation, only one person benefits. You know, it's if you look at the actual definition of cultural appropriation, it's basically where one person um, or one group of people take something from the minority culture and try to make it their own, um, and often misrepresent it. That's pretty much cultural appropriation. Um, especially when it comes from someone of a different race or ethnicity. Um, so that's pretty much out of the way. Second thing is people say that only it seems like only white people can make this, can pretty much cultural appropriate, and that's not really true either. Um, I see other races do it, and I'm not really I'm not singling white people out. But I will say though that most people who I see do this is cultural appropriation. Um, most of the people who do cultural appropriation are white people, so um, that's not really, that's just facts. So so with that in mind, I'm just gonna delve into why I'm against. Now I'm just gonna delve into what got me started into this, and why I'm against cultural appropriation. Um, so a while back, I this was years back. I was talking to this girl. We were we were friends and everything, and and of course she was white. Um, and then she said that she was really into Mexican culture, and uh, and that she was like half Mexican, half Indian, half something else. I don't know what it was. It was really bizarre to me. I didn't know how to feel about it, um, until someone pretty much told me, "Hey, look, this is a problem with white people. appropriating Mexican culture because they're not really genuinely interested in it. They're just using it just to feel better about themselves, because they're so bland and plain and white, and and I guess I wasn't really hearing it. I didn't want to accept it um, because I really like this girl. But then after that died out, like I just lost interest. I had to really think about it, and I realized, wow, this is really crappy. Um, it was cultural appropriation. Um, and I asked her questions about Mexican culture because I grew up in it, and she couldn't answer most of them. So that's how I knew that her interest in it was uh, was bogus. And I took offense to it after realizing that, and um, I realized that she wasn't really into it. And I think if she would have said, "I'm into American Mexican American culture," then that would have been different. But no, she had to say that she was into traditional Mexican culture, and that just didn't sit well with me. So I so that's pretty much what got me into cultural appropriation, and got me looking into it and realizing the harm it caused. And that's why I'm gonna explain to you why it's harmful. So so let's get started. First reason why it's harmful is because it promotes harmful stereotypes, and misconceptions. So, like when I hear um, people use Mexican, for example, Mexican dress that like to represent Mexican culture, it's just cringe. I see people, you know, wearing sombreros, using the maracas, um, using the poncho, use boots, all that stuff, and it's cringe because that's not how your average Mexican dresses. Like your average Mexican dresses just like your typical American. Um, Very rarely do people dress up like that, and only when it's hot. Like if it's really hot in the desert, people wear those clothes. But other than that, um, most people don't dress like that. Most people don't wear sombreros unless they're like from the ranch or someplace. Um, they don't have the maracas unless you're in a mariachi band or some band, some some band that uses that. Your average Mexican isn't really gonna use those instruments. It's just foolish, you know. And same with the boots. Um, you know, unless you live in the ranch, you're not really gonna wear them. Um, so it's just dumbing down culture and making it into like a parody or like a costume, and that's not really what culture is about. Um, and that's why cultural appropriation is harmful. If you really want to learn about the culture, then get into it, learn about it. Um, you know, just appreciate it, embrace it, study it, get into it. Like the problem I see with people who are accused of cultural appropriation, a lot of people who do that, they don't get into the culture. They just go by what they think the culture is, that what they think, they just go by what they think, uh, or what they assume the culture looks like, and it's not often not accurate, and and that's why there's a lot of stereotypes on it, and and just false misconceptions and everything else, and and I think the worst thing about it is that it's pretty difficult for um, minorities to debunk that because they're not really given a huge platform in America on the same level as white people. So like look at people like Lana Del Rey in the music video she did for Ride, where she put on a Native American headdress and and wanted to like express some sort of art form. That was disrespectful because only the chiefs of the tribe could wear that. Nobody else had the right to wear that. If you're not part of the tribe, you have no business wearing that. If you're not a chief, you have no business wearing that. It doesn't matter if it's for fun. It doesn't matter if you like it. It just doesn't matter, you know. Um, and of course, the Native American community, they got upset at her for that. Um, and then she got defensive and said, "Oh well, I lived among the Native American tribes, uh, reservations, I think, and it just it was just not relevant, you know." And don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of hers, but I got to call her out on it. And so yeah, that's the first thing, is that it just it's not being respectful to the traditions and the culture of origin and whatnot. So next point of why cultural appropriation is harmful is that it's a form of racism. And why do I say that? Well, because look at the way whites are treated when they do when they get dabble into a culture. Like, look at how they're treated compared to minorities. Like, take for example that girl, Bad Baby, or what was it? I can't remember her name. That Cash Me Outside girl. Um, where she went on Dr. Phil and said that catch line and wore those braids. Basically tried to act black or some way. Um, she got famous for it, and black women, they've been wearing braids for like years. They've been doing it way before she has, and they're and they've been acting ghetto. Um, and this is not all black women, but like some of them. Okay, you get my point. They've been acting uh, the same way. For the ones who act like Bad Baby, they've been acting the same way. Um, and they're called trashy. They're called ignorant. They're called this and they're called that. But the moment that a white person does it, the moment that um, Danielle Brigali, I think that's what her name is, the moment that she does it, all of a sudden it's glorified. All of a sudden she's popular. she's cool, she's hip and everything, and she's got a career out of it. And whereas all the black people who do it, they need help. They're misguided, they're trashy. So that's a straight up example of racism and hypocrisy, really. I could give you another example, like Elvis Presley. And I'm don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of his, but he screwed up when he practically stole rock from blacks. Blacks were the ones who created rock, and with their own culture. That's actually part of the culture. They created rock. Um, they with roots in jazz and other stuff, other forms of music. And then Elvis Presley comes along and cop practically plagiarizes, and then claims that he's the king of rock and whatnot, and he goes around acting as if he was the one who came up with it, and it's like, no, he didn't. Like, stop lying. Like, stop trying to deceive people. Because it's ridiculous. And part of the reason why he got so famous was because he's white. That's pretty much it. And that's the problem. Now, I'm not saying that you can't you can't ever get into culture because you're white, or because I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that you can't ever um, celebrate a culture because you're this race, or you're not of that race. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is you can't be a hypocrite. You can't get into the culture because you're white and then bash on people of a different race because they're not white, and shame the people of that culture. That's straight up racism. It's hypocritical. It's a double standard. It's a straight up just ignorant. And but unfortunately, that's what people are doing. It's like white people. They're just so sensitive, and they go around, you know, acting as if they're entitled to everything, all the cultures, and they go around in foreign countries, and they take cultures from there, and then they go back to America, and then they want to act as if, oh, I'm part of that culture now, even though they're just cherry picking, and it's like a little kid who uh, who thinks that he's entitled to play with whatever toys he wants, and just do whatever he wants with them. But then when he gets told, no, you can't do that because you got to be more respectful, then all of a sudden he gets hurt and he wants to cry about it. That's how white people remind me. Like, that's how they are. They don't care about other people's feelings. They don't really consider it. Um, they just don't take it into account. And why? Because they're privileged. They they've never had to suffer from racism, um, on the same level as blacks and other minorities have in America. Now, I don't know about other countries, but I know at least in America that's how it is, and that's why it's a problem, because because of white privilege. So that's the issue I have with it. Is straight up racism. And I think my last point is basically that it doesn't benefit both people. It usually only benefits one person or one group of people. Um, when white people take something from a specific culture, it's it usually benefits them because they're white again, and leaves the minorities at a disadvantage. Um, so again, going back to cultural exchange, it's cultural exchange is when you um, share cultures. It's when you don't try to steal, you don't try to do anything except share cultures and whatnot, and come together and like I had a lady who was from um, I don't know if she was from Vietnam or from South Korea, or I don't know where, but she was from Asia, and she went to our house one time and shared her culture with us. She she got like rice paper, I think, I'm not sure, and made like these I don't know if they're I don't know what they're called, but like they were like sandwiches, um or rolls rather, I don't know, and she put vegetables in it, and it tasted pretty good. So, and then we shared like some of our culture with her, and that's cultural exchange. Both people are benefiting. Cultural appropriation, only one person or group of people is benefiting. Um, so if you look at, you pay attention, look at the statistics, look at the facts, look at how people of color are treated in America and compared to whites, you'll see that people of color are being mistreated. Um, they're being outcasted. They're being ostracized. They're being killed, uh, oppressed, you name it, and nothing is being done about it. So how is it fair for whites to take part in the culture, take something, whatever they feel like from the culture, but do absolutely nothing to resolve the issues of racism and oppression in America? Like, how would you feel if somebody, um, somebody took something from your culture, but then at the same time, made fun of you for it, and or either that, or they didn't have your back when other people were making racist jokes about you. They didn't do anything about it. Like, you really think that that person is really into your culture? Like, you got to be honest with yourself about that. And another thing is that when you really think about it, um, white people have pretty much um, they've pretty much stole from all the other cultures, like in the past, they pretty much took um took stuff from other cultures and just forced the minorities to assimilate. And so, really, nothing that white people do in here in America is original. I don't know why they just can't create their own culture, but it is what it is. So, um, and another point is that this is why immigration is based on racism um, because white people they don't want immigrants from Mexico, but hypocritically they want to partake in the culture. They want to partake in Mexican culture and Mexican food and and reap the benefits of it. It's just dumb. And Taco Bell is is really famous. It's a really popular, rich business, and I don't got hate against Taco Bell, but I will say that 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 it's not real. It's not real Mexican food, and um, on top of that, it's not even that delicious. And I mean, I've actually went to an actual authentic traditional Mexican restaurant, and I compared it to Taco Bell. Like, Taco Bell did not come anywhere near it. Like, the Mexican restaurant had tons of stuff that was just way more delicious than Taco Bell. Like, they didn't really, like, for example, like in a taco, they didn't use this American cheese and ground beef and lettuce, and no, they didn't use all that. They actually took the time to grill everything, beef, chicken, real beef, real chicken. Um, Took the time to chop up the vegetables and whatnot, and actually hand make the actual tortillas and everything. And they actually took the time to make stuff. None of this processed food that Taco Bell uses. It was legit. And um and and the business is just it's just not popular, you know. It's still local, and I don't know if the people there, I don't know if the people working there, I don't know if they're legal, if they're not legal. But it looks like they're really hardworking, and they're not really that popular. I don't think so. So yeah. Um, Again, putting minorities at a disadvantage, and while uplifting white people, and that's just that's just not cool. So now I'm just gonna dive into the arguments for why cultural appropriation should be condoned or whatnot, and just debunk those arguments. Like, okay, so first argument is cultural appropriation promotes diversity, and according to white people, and to that I say no, it does not, because diversity is you, like I said, embracing all cultures, you know. not just the ones that you like. And and so that's really the first one. And the second point is um um let's see. Oh well, my POC friend, my colored friend said it was okay. So cultural appropriation is okay and whatnot. Or oh, this community said it was okay, so that means cultural appropriation is okay. And it's like, no, it's not. You know, like you'll see them bring up these examples of people in like Korea or Japan where they interview them, the people there, and they ask them, well, what do you think about cultural appropriation? And then the Japanese or the Koreans there or whatever people who live there, they're going to be like, oh, well, I agree with it. You know, I like, yeah, celebrate our culture. And then they try to, and then the Americans or Westerners, they try to justify it and say, see, cultural appropriation is acceptable. And it's like, no, it's not, because you're not telling them the whole truth. You're not explaining to them exactly what you're doing. Like, are you telling those people about the racism that goes on in this country? Are you telling them about about the inequality and the and how you're using the culture? Because they don't know that. You know, they're thinking that you're really into the culture, when you're really not. So of course they're gonna say, um, they're gonna support you because they're under the impression that that you're interested in the culture. But once you explain to them, well, how it really is and what you're actually doing, then they're not gonna be with you anymore. Like, I had a talk with one of my buds. He lives in a foreign country. At first he thought, oh, well, cultural he didn't really agree with the whole cultural appropriation thing. He thought that it was okay for whites to, indulge in Indian culture, even if it was like stereotypical or whatnot. I don't know. But then I explained to him, look, this is how things actually are, and then he wasn't okay with it. So that's how it is. Um, Next argument is, oh well, people have been doing it for centuries. Um, People appropriated other cultures and whatnot. So why can't I do it? Why, I'm an American. Why can't I do it? Well, I'll tell you why you can't do it. Because first of all, people did not appropriate, um, as much as white people claim they did. People had cultural exchanges. That's not the same as cultural appropriation. Like, um, I know that Christians, um, and Muslims, they had cultural exchanges in the past, in the Middle Ages. I think they weren't always at war with each other. There was a time when they got together and they pretty much exchanged cultures. They exchanged knowledge. They had exchanges, and same with Europeans and the Japanese to some extent. When the Portuguese, I mean, when the Portuguese came, um, I think at first they had uh, cultural exchanges. They pretty much exchange cultures and whatnot, and things of that sort. But then it just delved into something else. So, um, in Mexico, there were some cultural exchanges. People would eventually it grew into a melting pot, and people would share cultures. They would pretty much try to blend cultures together and create a new identity. That's how it is. I can give a lot more examples, but that's how pretty much that's how cultures came to be. Um, but the thing I notice about white people, in particular, is that that really didn't happen. I mean, at least for Americans, they went around imposing their culture on other people. They went around conquering and killing the natives, and then try to force them into white culture. So there really wasn't any cultural exchange. And on the contrary, they were just exploiting other people's cultures, like as if they owned it. So that argument just flies out the window. Um, so yeah, I mean, that pretty much sums up what I think about it and why cultural appropriation is harmful. And again, I'm not saying that you can't delve into the culture. Um, I'm just saying that you got to check your motives, check why you're into the culture. You know, are you into it just because you want an ego boost, or are you really genuinely interested in learning about it and partaking in it? Um, and being a part of it. And also, it's really important to just educate people on culture and how each culture actually is, than just coming up with something like just these harmful negative stereotypes of culture uh, that you don't belong to. So that's why it's harmful. So hope you guys learn something from this. Um, and you take this into account, and share this with your friends, like my video, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you later.